There's some kind of difference between the old machines and the new machine that you have now on the stage.
Well, there's difference, but it's basically it's the same thing. The sounds are better. There's more memory. There's more, it's better, but it's the same machine. What's the word? It's the same. It's not the Moog. It's still the Buchla.
Okay. Do you ever be tempted to use the Moog synthesizer or the standard synthesizer? No. Why not?
Because the Moog synthesizer is a musical instrument with a black and white keyboard that's designed and begs you to play old music and old new music. I was trying to create something. If I wanted to play a Bach Brandenburg concerto, I would much rather hear it on an organ or a harpsichord with the real instruments. That's what it was made for. It's fun, it's nothing wrong with it. But as a musician, I never cared to play old music on new instruments. I was looking for a new instrument to make a new music, not a new old music. So it never tempted me whatsoever.
Thank you very much. And concerning the original recording of the Silver Apples of the Moon, one of the most striking experience in listening is the sheer amounts of dynamics that the original recording has. It was difficult to obtain that kind of dynamics. It was a time-consuming process, or was easy to record the...
Well, it was done over a period of 13 months.
Wow.
Working probably 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for 13 months with two-track tape recorders, and only one recorded. The other one only recorded and played back. The other one only played back. So it was long and tedious, and there were no mixers. There were no. The reverb was a spring reverb. The only other thing that was around was a plate reverb the size of this wall over here. It cost thousands of dollars. So it was a tedious, long process I'm writing a book for MIT Press, a memoir, so I detail the daily task of doing this. But I had, what I was after was something that would, for me, would relate to using that technology. It wasn't a piece of music that I would have written down that I did on the synthesizer. The synthesizer and I lived together for 13 months, and we joined forces and made a piece of music. And sometimes in a public lecture, I play the opening of Silver Apples of the Moon and the opening of Switched on Bach. And you do that, you know exactly what was going on. It's a very different experience that I was after. Sure. And so it was wonderful. I loved doing it, but it was very hard work. And the dynamics, if you heard the Virgo, you hear the dynamics, but on the vinyl, it was really condensed. Everyone says vinyl is wonderful, but it's partly wonderful because it's condensed. It doesn't have all the highs, and you have very, very narrow dynamic range. So I was really happy when it came on Virgo, because then it was a complete, it heard it the way it used to.
It's flourishing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And you are using the four-way PA system, quadrophonic system. Are you panning the sounds from the 4 points, or they are statically?
No, it's not. I'm panning, but it's a different kind. Sometimes if it's a larger auditorium, I use 6. And I'd have to go back, and I haven't played in that big an auditorium for a long time now, so it's mostly 4. But the sound isn't going like that. It's going around in a circle or anything. It's moving. It's got a trajectory. Each sound has it goes in different dimensions, and so it's not panned around. It's actually it's going through, and the speakers are. I design it so that But you know what I mean. So I for instance, can kick the subwoofer in when it hits the center, and then moves off. So you can actually hear the kind of movement anywhere in the auditorium, because it's not. It's always. It's like if someone throws something that whizzes by you, you know where it's going, even if it's not going over your head, because it has a little great little Doppler and all of that in it. So it's not a panning system in the normal. It is panning, of course, but it's not in the normal. There's no object that's made that will do that. Well, the joysticks will do that, but they don't distribute it evenly. So you lose. You know, you have to keep it even as it moves. So I have all kinds of, I won't go into it now, but different techniques that I can do it live. A lot of it is done with little clips that I've done in the 13 hours a day, very carefully doing it.
Okay. And tonight you have on stage the Buchla synthesizer and the laptop. I saw something looks like Pro Tools, or what, is Ableton?
Ableton.
Ableton. So what's the division of...
There's... I'm using a Motu as the interface, the audio interface, and there are I've used almost all the inputs and outputs. The Buchla goes into the Ableton. I take an oscillator, for instance. You give an example. I take one oscillator and put it in Ableton and multiply it 4 times. So now I have one oscillator that can do 4 different things simultaneously.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. And then I send it back so that I can pan it with my panner in the Buchla, so it goes out and then back in again.
That's great.
And so that'll be the last chapter of the book. I'm gonna document this patch, because it's a very interesting. I think I haven't seen anyone else do it, but it's taking the analog equipment, multiplying it, and doing all the things you can do. I don't have that many modules because I don't need pitch shifting or anything, because it's all in Ableton. So I do it and it comes back, and it's as if I had 50 analog objects.
Sure.
But I can use, because they're in Ableton, I can actually use little tiny, what do you call it? MIDI switches and sliders and things like that, so that it just facilitates that. There's that whole umbilical cord in between. They go back and forth, and in between I've got a little keyboard, and I've got launchers for all the things that one would have, but it's going back and forth.
Wonderful. Is there some connection between the 2 laptops on stage, or you're working, watching each other?
No. This is like we're doing our eyes and ears.
Oh,
this is like
the best interface.
This to me was something I thought of way back, and I guess the first one was 1961. But the idea of taking technology on the stage with music. If you go to the piano and you play the piano, everybody knows they can associate with you. They can empathize with you as you're playing the piano. But what I was trying to do is more what a conductor does. The people in the orchestra are playing the instruments. The computer and the analog equipment's going, I'm controlling them. There's a lot of patches that I'm controlling. So I'm not playing every note, and only occasionally do I play lots of notes, but most of the time it's controlling various things in different ways: speed, amplitude, movement, and so forth. And that's not easy to see. I don't. My arms aren't going up. So, in some sense, it seemed to me that why do it in a public space? Well, because I'm being spontaneous, but there's no real sense of the spontaneity. You just have to believe it. So I thought at the beginning, I don't want it to play with a musician, because then I've got a musical instrument. But if we could have a non-sound performance going simultaneously, like jazz, it just opens up and makes it very spontaneous as it goes. That's why he's on the stage and not in the back of the hall. It's not a movie with music. It's a visual, a silent visual performance with the music. So Lillevan and I joined, what, 8 years ago, 7 years ago?
About 7 years ago.
Yeah. I've worked with people off and on since 1961, but I basically only work with Lillevan now because, we don't even need to rehearse anymore because I'm making these pieces that are growing. It's some of all the material just grows, and we do, well, each season it's different. So last night was the first performance this season. So tonight will be the second performance. We'll keep going, and it'll change as it goes, and he'll change. And
this was my next questions. So it could be possible every night to have a different version.
A different version. It is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We could never do exactly the same version twice anyway.
So every night is unique.
Yeah.
It's
the same materials, basically. Sometimes I left out some things last night that I had. I have resources, but the stage was so noisy. They had a big machine. I couldn't play the quiet stuff. So tonight I'll play a lot of the quiet stuff that I couldn't play last night.
Yeah.
I had to jump somewhere else into the piece to start it in a different way. It started, he didn't even know I started. People were still talking because they couldn't hear anything.
It was in Den Haag, it wasn't here, it was in the Netherlands, our last show.
Oh, well.
But that happens. I think it's very important though that every show can be different.
Yeah.
If you're playing a lot,
sure.
it keeps it interesting for us. And
Sure.
then, that moment, that went fantastic last night. And
Sure. It should be unique and rare.
Also, you asked if the laptops are connected, and my reply to that is, if they were connected by MIDI, and Morton could control that as well, then you could just bring a DVD player or something. It's more interesting that it's two humans who are connected as humans, but not in a MIDI.
I think of it like a jazz song, a duet.
Yeah. Would you prefer to perform in the center of the hall?
No.
No. Why not?
Because it's the best place to sit.
Okay.
And I don't want to take the best place to sit. Also, I'm not listening in the way the audience is listening. I'm thinking and performing, and I have the two monitors which help. They actually give you the sense of being in the center. And we just tested it, and it does give you a sense of it. But it's, I don't know. It's the pianist isn't getting the best. The sound is being pushed out into the auditorium. You get a player piano and you can go out and listen. But no, it's not for listening for me. It's experiencing as it goes. You send something out and it goes that way, but you're not there. You don't run with it, right? So I'm pushing it out. Actually, you can hear it from the stage. You can hear it moving out. And it's not so much the raw experience of it moving over your head. It's the sense of each sound having a trajectory that's a dimension of the experience. If you get a fly flying in your house, you don't have to be under it to know it's everywhere.
On the two monitors, you have 2 channels on each one?
Yeah.
2 channels each. Okay.
So the front is, the 2 channels on my left and the rear is on my right.
Oh, okay. So you're virtually in the middle.
Yeah.
Virtually. Okay.
Sometimes I use 4. But
in a diamond shape or?
Yeah, well, a semicircle.
Circle.
But 2 is fine because you also hear it go, so it just reinforces it. So you can, you can't tell. Last night I didn't use monitors because it sounded clear. I could hear everything, but then when the audience was there and there was noise and everything, it got harder to hear some of it. So it was better to have monitors.
And as a composer, are you interested in the actual electronic music? What do you feel about that music that now everyone calls electronic music?
Well, I think people should be able to call anything they want to call it. That's not important. I don't really know. I don't know how to answer that. I don't feel much about it. I got involved because I wanted to. I moved from, playing an instrument and traditional music. This is a long time ago. It's amazing how many years ago that is. It was it was 55 years ago, and so nothing like this happened. It was just starting. It was just the world of electronics was just literally starting, and because of that, I felt in the future. I did maybe 100, 200 years. I didn't know when in the future, but in the future, people would be attracted to making sound and making some form of music, but if people like myself were not involved in putting input into it, we'd have had nothing but the black and white mode. We wouldn't have had, because people would have, the technicians would have made new old instruments. They didn't, there's no reason they would have known to do anything else. So I was trying to create a moment where I could impact, I wasn't interested in changing things, I just wanted it to be there, so that if anyone cared, they could see what a person like me would do with a background, not wanting to play old music with a new instrument, but to create a brand new kind of music. And I have to say it's, I'm not the only one who's done it, of course, but I have to say that in the 55 years since I've been doing it, it's only now that I see young people starting to do anything like it. They're beginning to, most of it is dance music and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that, I think it's great. But that's not, they didn't need me to do that. But I see people beginning to get it, and they don't get it because I did it, but when they do it, I'm writing the book and I'm around, and they will have some kind of something to lean on, to go back and say, this is like the patch I'm talking about. Someday that patch will light lights in someone's eyes and say, oh, that's a great idea to do what I'm trying to do. And that's really what it was about. So the fact, I don't care how many, there are millions of genres, and what's interesting is they don't go away. They're just, it's like we're living out the quantum dream, you know, everything is just multiplying. Nothing goes away. We still have Paganini.
Yeah. Will you publish the patch?
That was, yeah, it'll be the last chapter of the book, and I have a supplement, would be all the patches for everything. And because my whole thing at the beginning was, I mean, I was lucky because I actually have done some things that people like to listen to, but that wasn't the point. The point was to do something and then share it. I knew I could do it, and so it was important that I did it. And then, what's the point of doing it if you don't share it? That's the whole thing. So yeah, I'll completely share it all the way down the line.
Okay. Well, for me, it's enough. It's wonderful. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Otro,